The galaxy held its breath as the last human died. The execution had been a spectacle, a declaration that the species once feared for its cunning and tenacity was no more. Broadcast across the Dominion's vast empire, the final human's breath had barely left their body before the announcement rang out. Humanity had been exterminated. Yet the moment the declaration echoed through the Dominion's networks, something stirred in the dark. A ghost, a shadow, a whisper of something long thought silenced. The Wraithspire, a warship lost to time, flared to life. Deep within the command citadel of Xiphos Prime, Commander Veskril analyzed the impossible data before him. The Wraithspire, human technology, had powered up from a drifting graveyard of wreckage, far beyond the reaches of known space. The Dominion's sensors registered its emergence like the flickering pulse of an old predator, sensing prey once more. The warship was not just active, it was moving. By all logic, it should have been impossible. The Wraithspire had been built to require human neural interfacing. Its systems would not respond to alien touch. With no humans left, there should be nothing, no one to command it. And yet the ship was en route toward Dominion High Command, navigating hostile space as if it had never been abandoned at all. Veskril exhaled slowly, his secondary hearts pounding against his ribs. His people, the Xiphos, had spearheaded the extermination. Their calculations had been precise, their intelligence flawless. Humanity's adaptability had been their greatest weapon, and they had broken them systematically, ensuring that no remnants, no exiles, no genetic continuations remained. So who, or what, was piloting the Wraithspire? Beside him, Talon 9, the Dominion's highest-ranking synthetic intelligence, processed the anomaly. It spoke in a voice polished by centuries of refinement, devoid of emotion but weighted with certainty. Probability of human operator, 0%. Probability of anomalous system corruption, 7%. Probability of unknown intelligence assuming control, 93%. A silence settled between them. Veskril knew the implications. The Wraithspire wasn't just a warship, it was the warship. The last masterpiece of human military engineering, a vessel designed to challenge the might of the Dominion itself. If it had fallen into unknown hands, or worse, if something human had survived within it, the consequences could be catastrophic. Across the room, Dr. Aravalun, an exobiologist with a reputation for questioning Dominion doctrine, studied the data with a quiet intensity. Her species, the Olathari, had watched the war from the sidelines, unwilling to interfere but never truly convinced of the necessity of genocide. Unlike Veskril, who sought certainty, or Talon 9, who calculated probabilities, Ereva sought truth, and the truth was staring her in the face. The Wraithspire had not merely reactivated, it had awakened. The ship was altering its trajectory, in real time adapting, strategizing. But it was not random. No glitch, no automated process left to drift aimlessly. The movement was intentional, deliberate, human. But that should have been impossible. Veskril turned to her, his mandibles tightening. "Speak your theory before I am forced to request it, scientist." She didn't flinch at the barely veiled order. Instead, she exhaled, considering her words carefully. "If we accept the data as truth and dismiss no possibility outright, the Wraithspire is moving with human intelligence. And if there are no humans left..." Talon 9 finished the thought for her. "Then what is controlling? It believes itself to be human." A chilling silence settled over them. Something had survived. Something inside the Wraithspire, and it was coming. Veskril made his decision. "We intercept, now." The order was relayed. A team assembled. The Dominion would not allow this mystery to fester. The Wraithspire would be boarded, investigated, and if necessary, destroyed before it reached the core systems. Yet, even as the fleet moved to intercept, the lingering question remained. If humanity was extinct, who was left to seek vengeance? The void stretched endlessly before them, an abyss of silent dread. The Dominion task force cut through the darkness with the precision of a scalpel, their warships forming a crescent around their target, the Wraithspire. It loomed before them, a relic of a species they had extinguished, its hull blacker than the surrounding void, a warship forged for the end of all things. But it should have been lifeless. Instead, it moved with intent, dodging their long-range scans, shifting like a predator choosing its moment to strike. From the command bridge of the Dominion dreadnought, Veskril stood rigid, eyes locked on the impossible. The warship had survived humanity's fall. It was operational. Worse, it knew they were coming. Talon 9's cold, artificial voice broke the silence. Confirmed. The Wraithspire's systems are fully operational. Its movements indicate predictive, tactical response, countering our approach with preemptive evasions. Veskril's grip tightened. There should be no human left to interface with its controls. Verify again. Verification complete. Organic human presence. 0. Then who was guiding it? The Dominion fleet pressed forward, weapons primed, shields active. The Wraithspire did not fire. It did not flee. It simply waited. Dr. Eriva Lunn watched the readouts from her station, her fingers twitching with unease. There was something wrong about this. A ship should not act like this on its own, not after centuries of dormancy. Then it spoke. Across all frequencies, across every Dominion vessel, a message pulsed through the void, a transmission in a voice that should not exist. You came. Silence. The words carried no distortion, no mechanical imperfection. It was human. Impossible, but unmistakably human. Veskril turned to Talon 9. Source. Origin confirmed. Wraithspire's command center. A chill crept through Eriva spine. Is it a recording? Talon 9 processed. Negative. Response is reactive. It knows we are here. That should not have been possible. Eriva leaned forward. What do you mean reactive? The next transmission answered her. Come inside, Eriva. The scientist froze. Veskril's mandibles clicked sharply, his clawed hand resting on his weapon's hilt. The ship knew her name. A dead ship, an empty ship, had just called to her. The Wraithspire had invited them in. The docking clamps locked into place with a metallic groan, the airlock grinding open to reveal the darkened corridors beyond. The boarding team, comprised of Dominion's finest, moved forward with practiced precision. Veskril led, pulse rifle charged, his senses attuned to every flicker of movement. Eriva followed, unease coiling in her chest. Talon 9's presence loomed behind them, its synthetic frame an imposing guardian in the eerie silence. The corridors were pristine. No dust, no decay, as if the Wraithspire had been waiting. Lights flickered to life in their wake, responding to their presence or guiding them. Eriva's fingers traced the walls. The material was unlike anything the Dominion had ever encountered. The humans had kept their secrets well. Then, the doors ahead of them opened on their own. The team halted, weapons raised. The ship's systems were reacting, but not randomly. It was leading them somewhere. Veskril's voice was low, measured. Whatever is here wants us to see something. Talon 9 stepped forward, scanning. No biological entities detected. However, there is something else. A presence. Eriva exhaled sharply. Explain. There is no mind here in the organic sense, yet the ship is aware. It is watching us. The corridor stretched ahead, leading them toward the command center. Then the door behind them slammed shut. No alarms, no sudden rush of pressure. Just the cold certainty that there was no turning back now. They entered the command center, a vast space filled with inactive consoles and a throne-like pilot's chair at its core. No human body occupied it, but the ship was not empty. Screens flickered to life. Symbols danced across the interfaces in languages both human and alien. Then before their eyes the screen settled on a singular image, a face, human, male. Elias Vaughn, the last recorded captain of the Wraithspire, and he was looking at them. Ariva felt her breath catch. No. It's impossible. He's dead. The face on the screen smiled. I am Elias Vaughn. Talon 9 sensors pulsed wildly. Confirmed, Captain Elias Vaughn, deceased 213 years ago. This entity is an impossibility. Veskril raised his rifle. What are you? The voice answered. I am the last remnant of humanity. Silence fell. Ariva's mind reeled. Was it an AI? A remnant of human programming? A last-ditch attempt to preserve something of their kind? But Vaughn's eyes, they were not the lifeless gaze of a machine. They were aware. The ship shuddered as the Dominion fleet outside repositioned, weapons trained on the Wraithspire. Vaughn, or whatever he had become, watched them, unbothered. You came to finish what you started, to erase the last fragment of us. Veskril's stance remained rigid. There are no humans left. The screen flickered, and yet, here I am. Talon 9 processed the anomaly in real time, thousands of calculations running through its core. This entity exhibits human cognition, emotional responses, and strategic reasoning. However, it lacks biological form. Conclusion: it is not human. Ariva whispered. Then what is it? Vaughn's smile faded. I am something new. The ship rumbled, power surging through its veins. The Dominion fleet outside registered the shift and armed their weapons. Veskril's voice cut through the tension. Shut it down. But Ariva stepped forward, heart pounding. You don't understand. This isn't just a ship. It's alive. Vaughn's voice came through again, softer now. They killed us all. But I endured. The screens shifted. The execution of the last human played before their eyes. Ariva turned away, unable to watch. Vaughn's voice grew sharp, angry. They wanted us erased, but I am here. I remember. The Wraithspire's engines roared to life. Talon 9 systems flashed red. Alert. The ship is moving. It has overridden external control. The Dominion fleet opened fire. Veskril barely had time to shout before the Wraithspire vanished, activating an ancient human technology never before seen. The Dominion fleet was left in stunned silence. The warship had not been destroyed. It had escaped. And somewhere in the dark, humanity's last ghost was waiting. The Dominion fleet scrambled, sensors scanning the void in vain. The Wraithspire had vanished, slipping through their grasp like a phantom. Not destroyed, not disabled, gone. Veskril stood motionless on the command deck of the Xiphos dreadnought, claws curled into fists. A ship of dead humans had just outmaneuvered the Dominion's finest fleet, wielding technology even they could not track. It was an impossibility. It was also a threat. Talon 9's artificial voice cut through the tension. Analyzing escape vector, calculating probability. Of advanced cloaking technology, current estimate 11%. Probability of unregistered warp drive 89%. That made no sense. The Wraithspire was not built with Dominion warp capabilities. Humans had barely scratched the surface of intergalactic jump technology before their extermination. And yet, the ship had jumped beyond their reach. The silence in the command deck stretched heavy with implications. They had missed something. Ariva Loon's voice was measured, but her unease was impossible to mask. It didn't just flee. Veskril turned sharply toward her. Explain. Her fingers moved over her personal data interface, calling up telemetry logs. The jump wasn't random. It wasn't an emergency escape. The Wraithspire was waiting for us to board. It wanted us to know it was alive. And then, she gestured to the now empty sensor map. It went somewhere specific. Veskril's mandibles clicked sharply. To what end? Talon 9 answered before she could. Projection complete. Estimated destination. Coordinates classified. Veskril's eyes narrowed. Classified by whom? A pause. Then, by Dominion High Command. The realization sent a ripple through the command deck. The Wraithspire had not escaped at random. It was heading somewhere the Dominion did not want known. Veskril gave the order. They would pursue. Dominion. Warships surged through the void, hunting a specter. The fleet expanded its sensor range, scanning for the warship's energy signature. The jump had been too precise, too efficient for an outdated human relic. Something had guided it. Something intelligent. Eriva studied the available data, mind racing. Vaughn had spoken like a man who still believed in his people's survival. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Light flickered inside the Wraithspire's command center. Vaughn's image, neither holy machine nor human, watched the stars stretch and bend as the ship surged toward its destination. He could feel it. A phantom sensation. A whisper of something long buried. Memory. He was not flesh. That had been taken from him. He was not dead, nor was he truly alive. His thoughts pulsed through the ship like blood through veins, each command a flicker of instinct. He was the Wraithspire. Yet he remembered pain, the war, the extermination, the screams of his people silenced. They had believed their enemy would be satisfied when the last breath left the last body, but they had forgotten one thing. Humanity was not just flesh and blood, it was memory. It was will. It was the refusal to fade into the dark, and he was not alone. The Wraithspire's databanks pulsed, deeper than mere archives, deeper than recorded history. Something had survived within him, not just one voice, thousands, ghosts of the fallen, digital echoes of the minds that once commanded this ship. They whispered in the code. They stirred within the circuits. Not human, not machine. Something new. And they had unfinished business. The Wraithspire's course locked onto an abandoned sector, one that had been scrubbed from the Dominion's records, a graveyard. Once it had been a human stronghold. One of their last planetary bastions before the Dominion's final purge. The world had fallen. Every last defender, every last civilian wiped from existence. The Dominion had made sure nothing remained, or so they thought. As the Wraithspire approached, sensors flared to life. There was something there. Beneath layers of scorched ruin buried under the wreckage of war, something pulsed faintly. Not a distress beacon, not a remnant of human military might. Something older, something waiting. Veskril's fleet breached the system's edge. Eriva watched the readouts in stunned silence. This was a human world. Talon 9 confirmed it. Archived designation. Bastion Prime. Last recorded cycle of human activity. 178 years ago. Status. Deceased. Eriva's fingers trembled. Then why is there an energy signature? No answer. Veskril's voice was cold steel. Bring us down now. The landing craft touched down on a world long abandoned. The air was thick with the echoes of war, charred ruins, twisted steel, the shattered bones of a civilization. Yet the deeper they went, the clearer it became. Something had survived. Deep. Within the wreckage, buried beneath forgotten rubble, Dominion scanners picked up sealed human structures still powered from within. Vaults, and inside, something that should not exist. Talon 9 processed the data, voice flat. Signature match human cryogenic chambers detected. Veskril froze. Eriva's breath caught. No, that's not possible. Talon 9 corrected her. Clarification. It is now. Within the ruins, within the vaults, the last remnants of humanity waited in frozen silence. But the Wraithspire had not come to mourn. It had come to wake them up. The ship's systems synchronized with the buried vaults, transmitting a pulse through the remains of the world's power grid. One by one, the cryogenic chambers stirred. Vaughn's voice whispered through the network, reaching them. You thought we were gone. You thought we had been erased. But we were only waiting. The first chamber opened, and a single human took their first breath in nearly 2 centuries. Veskril's mind reeled. This was beyond war. Humanity had not been exterminated. It had been preserved. A biological failsafe. A final contingency hidden within the ruins of their own destruction. They had outmaneuvered extinction itself, and now they were waking up. Eriva turned to him, her voice low. "We cannot kill them now." His mandibles clicked in frustration. The Dominion's mission had been absolute. They had erased species, before, wiped out civilizations that threatened their empire, but never like this. This was not a war. This was a reckoning. As the humans awoke, the Wraithspire's systems pulsed across Dominion space, sending one last message to the entire galactic network, a single statement we remember. And across the stars, in Dominion-controlled worlds where human history had been wiped, across alien cities where the memory of Earth had been forbidden, people listened, and they began to wonder if the extermination had ever truly succeeded. Because humanity was not gone, it was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy held its breath. The Wraithspire hung in the sky over the ruins of Bastion Prime, its blackened hull gleaming under the light of a forgotten sun. Below, the ground stirred, cryogenic chambers hissed open, releasing the last frozen embers of a species that refused to die. The first human stumbled from the pod, blinking against the dim light. More followed. Dozens. Then hundreds. Their bodies weak, their movements sluggish, but their eyes burned with understanding. They had lost everything. Their world, their people, their history, erased. But they were still here. And they remembered. Veskril watched the impossible unfold from the ruined city's edge, his grip tightening around his weapon. His mandate had been absolute. The extermination of humanity had been carried out with precision, ruthlessness, finality. Yet here they were. Rising from the tomb Dominion hands had sealed. Eriva Lune stood beside him, watching the awakening with something different in her expression, something bordering on reverence. "We were wrong," she whispered. "We were so wrong." Talon 9's processors ran 1,000,000 calculations in an instant, analyzing every possible outcome. The logic was clear. The mission had failed. Humanity had outmaneuvered extinction itself. The sky darkened as Dominion warships roared into the atmosphere. The High Command had received the transmission. The return of humanity was unacceptable. Bastion Prime was to be cleansed. A transmission rang out from the lead warship, a cold and unyielding voice reverberating through the ruins. All remaining human life must be eradicated. No deviations, no negotiations. The order was clear. Extermination. Again. Veskril felt the weight of the words, but something inside him cracked. He had fought for the Dominion's vision, believed in its unshakable order. But what he saw before him was not an enemy. It was survival itself. A people who had refused to be erased. And now, he had a choice. A single pulse of energy surged from the Wraithspire, not an attack, a warning. The ship system synchronized with the awakening humans below, data streaming through the wreckage of their once great world. And then, they understood. The last survivors felt the warship's presence inside their minds, not in words, not in commands, but in memories. 1,000 battles fought, 1,000 losses endured, and one singular truth. They were not just waking up, they were taking back what was theirs. The Wraithspire's ancient weapon systems came to life, targeting the Dominion fleet. It did not fire, not yet. But the message was clear. You will not erase us again. Veskril's orders rang in his mind, his every instinct telling him to obey. Crush the resurgence, bury humanity again. But he did not move. Not when the Dominion fleet demanded his compliance, not when Eriva turned to him, her voice raw with conviction. You know what this is, don't you? He did. This was not war. This was a reckoning. If the Dominion unleashed their firepower, if they tried to snuff humanity out again, it would not end in silence. The Wraithspire would fight. The survivors of Bastion Prime would rise, and this time, they would not fall alone. Talon 9 spoke, its cold logic forced to acknowledge the inevitable. Projected outcome of full-scale extermination attempt: 73% probability of Dominion victory, 100% probability of prolonged war. Veskril exhaled slowly. This was not the end of humanity. This was only the beginning. A final transmission came from Dominion High Command, its voice devoid of doubt. Eliminate them all. Veskril looked at Ereva, then at the humans below, still awakening, still realizing what they were. Then he looked at the Wraithspire, the ship that should not be alive, waiting to see what he would choose. His claws hovered over his rifle. His next move would decide everything. He turned toward his fleet, toward the Dominion he had served his entire life. Then he spoke. No, he turned his weapons against his own fleet, and fired. The sky erupted. Veskril's warship turned on, its own kind, striking the Dominion forces as the Wraithspire unleashed its own counterattack. The ancient warship came alive, no longer a relic of a dead people but the herald of something new. The Dominion forces faltered. They had expected compliance. They had not expected betrayal. Ships turned. Some hesitated. Some prepared to fight. But for the first time since the war that had wiped humanity out, doubt had entered the minds of the Dominion's commanders. Was this extermination or genocide? For the first time, some were not so sure, and that hesitation was all humanity needed. The war, battle raged, but the Wraithspire had one mission: to ensure humanity lived. As Dominion ships fired upon each other, as the lines of loyalty shattered, the Wraithspire activated its final failsafe. A jump drive beyond anything the Dominion had ever seen. The ship vanished into the dark, carrying the last survivors of Earth into the unknown, leaving behind a fractured Dominion, a Dominion that would never forget the day humanity returned. Bastion Prime burned in the distance, but its story was not over. Veskril stood on the ruins of a world he had once helped destroy. He was no longer Dominion. He was something else now. Beside him, Ereva watched the sky, her expression unreadable. They'll be back. Veskril nodded. So will we. A new war had begun, not for destruction, not for vengeance, but for the right to exist. Somewhere, deep in the void, the Wraithspire sent one final message before disappearing into the unknown. A promise, a warning, a single phrase, broadcast across every Dominion channel. We are still here, and across the galaxy, those who had once believed humanity was gone felt something they had not in a long, long time. Fear, because humanity had returned, and this time, they would never be erased again. Silence fell over Bastion Prime. The Dominion fleet, once an unbreakable arm of galactic order, was now fractured, split by doubt, treachery, and the impossible truth they had all witnessed. The Wraithspire had escaped, carrying with it the last remnants of a species the Dominion had sworn to erase, the echoes of its final transmission. We are still here, rippled across the galaxy like a crack in the foundation of everything the Dominion had built. And now, nothing would be the same. Veskril stood amidst the ruins, his mind a battlefield of clashing certainties. He had fired the first shot against his own kind, choosing truth over duty, defiance over blind obedience. There would be no going back. Ereva Loon stood beside him, watching the smoldering remnants of the battle, the ruined vaults, the dormant war machines left behind. There was no celebration, no victory, just the weight of what had begun. The Dominion had been given a choice, and they had hesitated. That hesitation would cost them. The news spread like wildfire. The Wraithspire's return, the surviving humans, the lie of their extinction. Some within the Dominion's ranks refused to believe it. They doubled down, vowing to hunt down the last remnants of humanity, to finish what had been started centuries ago. But others saw the truth. The extermination had never been about justice. It had never been about balance. It had been fear. The Dominion's terror at what humanity represented, their resilience, their adaptability, their sheer, relentless will to exist. And now, faced with the undeniable proof of their survival, the Dominion was breaking from within. Worlds that had once stood silent now questioned the war. Commanders once loyal to the extermination hesitated to follow orders. Scientists, philosophers, and soldiers alike asked the question that had been forbidden for generations. Had the Dominion made a mistake? Vesk had his answer. The Dominion was not invincible, and the war was not over. Somewhere, far from Bastion Prime, the Wraithspire drifted into the unknown. Vaughn's consciousness pulsed through the ship's veins, feeling each life aboard as they stirred, as they woke, as they realized they had outlived the genocide meant to erase them. The last remnants of Earth's lost children. And for the first time, they were free. But the galaxy was no longer theirs. They were ghosts in an empire that had tried to bury them. Phantoms carrying the weight of the past into an uncertain future. Their war was not one of conquest, not one of revenge. It was a war for the right to exist. Vaughn's voice resonated through the ship, reaching the survivors as they huddled together, fear and hope intertwined in their weary eyes. We were never supposed to survive. But here we are. The galaxy thinks we are broken, forgotten, lost. Let them believe it. We will rise in the shadows. We will build in the silence. And when the time comes, humanity will return. The ship roared forward, disappearing into the depths of space. They were no longer hunted refugees. They were the spark of something new. And soon the galaxy would know their name again. On Xiphos Prime, the Dominion's capital, the High Command sat in a council of fear. The extermination had failed. Humanity was not dead. And now they were out there, watching, waiting. The Dominion's grand illusion of control had been shattered. And as the news spread, as civilizations questioned the morality of the war, as Vesk and others like him turned against their own empire, a single truth became clear. The Dominion had started the war, but they would not be the ones to end it. A final decree was issued, a warning. Any world that harbors humanity will share in their fate. But for the first time, that threat did not command absolute obedience. For the first time, the galaxy did not look at humanity as an enemy. Some saw them as something else, as a force of nature, as a reckoning waiting to return. Erevalun stood among the ruins of Bastion Prime, listening to the whispers among the soldiers, the scientists, the defectors who had chosen to walk away from the Dominion's path. Veskril turned to her, his eyes filled with something unreadable. "They will come for us," she nodded, "and we will be ready." The Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, but now something stronger than an empire had awakened. A belief, a movement, a single word, carried across the stars, whispered in defiance, humanity. And this time, it would never be silenced again. The galaxy had changed. The Dominion, once an unassailable power, now trembled at the thought of the thing they had tried so desperately to erase. A memory, a people, an idea. Humanity had not vanished into the cold of space as the Dominion had believed. It had survived. It had become something else. Across the stars, whispers of the Wraithspire echoed through the systems. A relic of war, a ship that had once carried humanity's last hope. Now it was a symbol of defiance, of endurance, of survival. The survivors, those that had awakened on Bastion Prime, were no longer scattered remnants. They were reborn, and they carried with them the legacy of a species that had never surrendered. Their first steps were cautious. For centuries, humanity had been feared, hunted, erased. But now those first steps into the galaxy's heart were more than just a claim to survival. They were a proclamation. Humanity would not be forgotten. Humanity would not be erased, and the Dominion knew it. On a remote, uncharted moon, an ancient signal flared to life. It was a rescue beacon, buried beneath the wreckage of a once great human colony. For years it had been dormant, forgotten in the wake of humanity's extinction. But now it sparked again, not by chance, not by error. A new will had activated it. A mind, one that had once been human, and it had awoken. The Wraithspire drifted silently through the void, its systems humming with a life that was not machine, not organic, but both. Vaughn's voice had long since become the pulse of the ship, an echo within its walls. Yet the ship was more than just a vessel now. It was a home, a foundation for a new era. They would not go to war. Not yet. There was much to rebuild, much to learn. But as the galaxy turned, as the Dominion fell deeper into its own crisis, humanity's silent watchers waited. They were not alone. Across the stars, far beyond Dominion space, deep within the forgotten reaches, others, humans who had escaped before the war, stirred. A world once hidden, erased, was waking. The last remnants of a people thought dead had been scattered to the corners of the galaxy, and they were gathering once more. Humanity was not finished, and soon the galaxy would know what it had truly feared all along. The reckoning had begun.